Hi there, you're listening to A Founder's Life, and I'm your host, Leo Gestetner. I'm joined here today by Tricia Benn. Tricia, would you like to introduce yourself?
I would love to, Leo. It's wonderful to be here with you and everybody who's listening. My formal title, I'm the CEO and a partner in C-Suite Network. And what I do, you want me to say what I do?
Yes. Yeah.
That's complex. I'll make it simple. I do what every CEO does, and that is hold the vision and mission delivery of in my case, a full ecosystem and platform to serve executives, owners, investors, and their influencers, the people that counsel them and advise them and support them in their success.
Well, that's a mouthful.
There you go. But that's the simplistic version, Leo. If you want me to get into more complexity, I can get there in a millisecond.
Well, why don't you tell us a little more about C-Suite and what you've obviously got a number of connected companies, but what your platform does.
Yes. Well, thank you. You know, at the end of the day, our mission is to see that audience, the executive audience, essentially, see them succeed faster. And what we've done is we've brought together an ecosystem to support those executives, you know this well, Leo, to be able to have an environment that's a trusted environment, to be able to come with challenges, opportunities, concerns, issues that they're working through, and have an environment where there's transparency to tell the truth and share, not just outcomes. I did this and it was successful. The key is, why was it successful? And if people tell you first untruths, this event had 1,000 people and it actually had, maybe 150, right? We all know those scenarios, right? Well, then they say it's fabulously successful business model. Okay. And then you can have people say, well, I'm going to run an event. It's a really successful way of, da 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 da. And the fact of the matter is, it might have actually been successful. The number might be completely superfluous. It doesn't matter in the least bit, because those 150 people that were in the room were absolutely the right people to have in the room, and it created an environment where real value was created. But if you don't have that context and someone leveling with you about what really happened, why it was successful for them, then you don't know. So what we've done is we've created that environment with our values-based approach, and then we've created a platform of success. So everything that anyone across our whole platform does at excellence, we want them to be celebrated, and I want them to win faster. I want people to know what they do at excellence and be able to work with them. If it's the right fit and it's the right need, then please work as quickly as possible together to get where you need to go. And then that way, what we're doing is we're reducing the two biggest costs we have as executives and business owners, and that is time. No matter how much money you have, you can't buy it back, and noise, because noise gets in the way of being able to prioritize appropriately to be able to win and deliver success in your business and in your life. So that's again a simple version. I can go through much more complication, and maybe we'll get into that a little bit, but because the platform of what we need to succeed is a great deal now, and it's changing very quickly, and the models are changing very quickly, and there's a lot to navigate if you want to be successful, not just today, but as we plan for how we're moving forward in our businesses and our lives.
And is it very much a membership model, or is it
the way that the business model works? So geeking out a little bit for a moment, our model is very much 3 buckets of do it yourself, do what you need to do with others, or have it completely customized and done for you. And so membership does come into that, where we do have membership and subscription levels in that do-it-yourself. Come in, participate socially, network, connect. But the currency of the future really is trust. We believe this wholeheartedly. We've been using the tagline, most trusted network, for many, many years, because we're constantly vetting to good people. They just, we just all happen to be running and owning and influencing business and businesses. But that do-it-yourself piece is all about, here are tools that you're going to need to be successful. We incorporate our C-Suite Marketing Cloud in our basic, our executive leader, our entry-level membership, and with our contributors. And that has unlimited CRM, landing pages, sales funnels, social media scheduler, calendar links, all of those pieces, and a great deal more, because what we've been doing is we've been populating the templates that we use and successfully into our base so that our members and partners and leaders across the whole C-suite platform can use those templates and see their success. And we use that with our partners, so we're able to share, oh, this person was somebody that we introduced you to, you're in conversation, make sure you're touching base with them, those kinds of things. With our contributors, those are the folks that we're supporting to have them be able to share their IP, their writing, their audio content, their video content. And so we make that very simple, so they're able to do that and upload their content and move forward with their business. And we're now, I think it's around 500 podcasts that we distribute. So obviously that's thousands of episodes a year. And we're at around 70 million downloads total on our podcasting, although we're really quickly scaling that up. We just recently announced our partnership with the New York Stock Exchange, which we're really thrilled with, and participated in their partner day. So we'll be distributing their podcast content, and there's so much, which is wonderful. We have our video content, or C-Suite TV. We're running at over 600 events a year now, just under the C-Suite brand. And that doesn't include speaking engagements and all those kinds of things. So there's a great deal happening. We actually, when Wall Street Journal stopped publishing the world's best business publications or business books, we took up that mantle. So that's been since January 2024. And so now we announce the C-Suite bestseller list, which is the world's best business books, and very proudly carry that mantle. And obviously it runs separately. There's certain criteria. If you sell 3,000 books in a week, that gets you into the run. But there's just so much that we're working on across the platform that you can access, education resources, networking, and opportunities. And then done with others, we have our peer groups, our councils. So, our Hero Club is our CEO group. Our Thought Council is our IP leaders, our thought leaders, our faculty of C-Suite. We have Leadership Global is our executive women, our Women's Coaching and Consulting Council is, women coaches and consultants. We have our Nonprofit Prosperity Council, and I could go on, and I'm so sorry to everybody that I'm missing and not listing everyone, but that's our peer groups where we're supporting around a specific issue or firmographic, demographic, that kind of thing, so that's coming together. And then Done For You is very much a customized consulting engagement where we're able to bring partners that have different pieces at excellence and provide fully supported solution using the C-Suite brand, using our services, using all of the things that we know that different partners do at excellence to be able to provide that value.
Well, thank you for that formative overview on the different things that you can do.
It's scaled a little since every time we get to speak, Leo, it's scaled a little bit more, that's for sure.
It's definitely evolving. Definitely changed a little from the first time we met, for sure, which I'm guessing was about 2018.
My goodness, yes.
17 or 18, yeah. And talk to me a little bit about your personal journey that's got you here.
So my personal journey is I grew up on a farm where I learned very quickly that preciousness is not rewarded. If anybody is here with us, grew up on a farm, they will absolutely, I know you'll be able to relate, that there are only 3 states of being on a farm. And useful, spoiler alert, is the only one you ever want to be. And so I always say, set the bar right at useful, not higher, useful, because the other 2 states of being are dead, which is really unfortunate, right? If you're on a farm and things die that you don't want to die, it's a very bad situation. Or useful dead, which means I get to eat you, or something else does, so that's not exactly a great position to be in. So useful, if you set the bar there without preciousness, you're working toward a mission, you're delivering something of importance. Again, cancels out noise and moves things forward. So growing up on a farm, you're also very industrious. There's all kinds of things that go with that. Community, outrageously important, right? If you don't have your community support, you and your animals starve. There's no way around that. If something goes wrong, you're in trouble, and it's your community that supports you. So lots of really powerful, important lessons as I was growing up. And I also was a competitive figure skater. And with the X sport and anybody, in sport, you fall, and you fall again until you fall a little less. And I think those things, help you understand the tenacity. You work through the pain, you get stuff done, and you also have the evaluation of what's happening. And I think those are such important skill sets for how you set what you're going to do and how you're going to achieve that and actually live through the achievement, which is critical. Otherwise, what's the point in doing any of it? So that was massively formative for my life and where I've gone, what I've done, and how I set the expectation of what I'm delivering on in the everyday. I also joke, Leo, that I'm third generation crazy woman. So my grandmother started her own business in the 50s. She died when I was 12. I wish so badly I could go back and speak with her about how did you start your own business when a woman couldn't even get a credit card by herself. I honestly don't know, because we didn't have that conversation at that point. And my mom is a world leader in her space. In fact, she's just taken on the chair of her global association. And I just thought that was normal. I just didn't understand there was any other way to things. So it's been very, very, very interesting in terms of my trajectory. I actually took women's studies as a minor because I didn't understand the whole framing that everybody else seemed to have about why women don't do certain things. I literally had no clue. So I wanted to learn about this. That's like, what happened to everybody? I don't understand. And of course, I have 3 daughters. I have a stepdaughter who's in her 20s, and I've got one off at college, and I've got a teenager. So I've already fully informed them, of course, that they are 4th generation. And that's just the way that it is, 4th generation crazy women. And whatever they choose to do, that's not with a weight of expectation by any means. I'm not a believer in that. But it's definitely an interesting part of the way that I've looked at things and done different things in my career.
And on the career side, what have you done that led up to where you are now?
So from a career perspective, my degrees were in sociology and anthropology, and it never even occurred to me. And this is, it's so strange. I love business so much. I love people building businesses to see success that delivers other people's success. I can't tell you how passionate I am about that. But when I was in school, the way that business school was presented to me was this notion of very much greediness and trophy hunting and trophy collection. And I wanted nothing to do with it. I really wanted nothing to do with it. And I took every other course. I did take macroeconomics. I took stats and TA stats and all, it wasn't that I didn't want to learn about how things work. Organizational theory, how do you get people doing things that make sense and working together, all of those kinds of things. But business itself just seemed like such a unattractive situation. And so I did my undergrad. I lived in England for a couple of years, and I came back. I did my 2-year master's. I was really fortunate to be part of a political ethics program where I was supervising interviews that we did on political ethics with every level of journalist, government, politicians at every level, and the public. And we were published within a few months of completing the research. So that was my first publication. And it was just such an extraordinary experience. And I still didn't even know what market research was. But when I finished that program, my professor said, my goodness, you need to look at market research. And this will give you a hint on my age. I went to the library and got out the yellow pages and took down the names and numbers of the market research firms in Toronto and Ottawa, and I took my first job in market research. I actually started out in data programming and statistical analytics. And within a year, I was recruited to the largest public affairs firm and the best known brand in Canada, other than Pamela Anderson. And so that's where I learned a great deal about strategy, communications. I did political polling and trend research. And I mean, literally, I got my 10,000 hours in as few of days as humanly possible. And only recently started admitting that there were nights where I had to be in at 4 o'clock in the morning for political polling, and I was still finishing up my other work that I was doing. And I just, lay down under my desk so I get a couple hours sleep before starting the next cycle, But it's like, where are you going to go safely for 2 hours to sleep? May as well just stay here and get it done. Anyway, it was an extraordinary experience. And that took me from Toronto to Ottawa to Washington, D.C. And that's where I had a really big decision. I was the youngest vice president in North America at Ipsos, and a very large global market research firm. And I was asked by Ken Melman if I would consider putting my hat in the ring for President Bush's re-election campaign. Now, I've never belonged to a political party, which I believe made me fairly dangerous when it came to political polling, because the rhetoric and the whole thing of being part of a party wasn't something to sway me, because I wasn't part of any of it. And I never was in Canada. I never was in the US. I'm registered as an independent, as a US citizen now as well. That really, really was one of those moments in time that made me think a great deal. And I ended up choosing not to. What I did was I went back to Canada and I took on a role within Rogers Communications, which is a very, very large telecommunications company in Canada that owns everything. Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly large company with all kinds of assets, including, real estate, cable, wireless. I mean, literally, you could go on and on. And I worked in the media company and built a $20 million practice within the media company. And this is when I really understood just how much I love business. And in DC, I was able to, sort of fix a business that we'd bought in terms of how it was fitting into the whole mothership of Ipsos. And it was a tremendous experience. At Rogers, I was able to take a supplier side capability and bring it into client side, which back then wasn't done. It just wasn't done, and brought in brand new technology that today is just a given. I mean, literally, of course, but back then it was groundbreaking. And I was speaking all over North America around that. Then I took on a global CMO role within a $3 billion company, headed up strategy for them. I'd done an executive strat certification program at Queen's, a business school in Canada, arguably the best. We'll see. There are a couple of really great business schools in Canada. And then with that role, I became involved with C-Suite. I became a sponsor of C-Suite Network. And then 2.5 years later, I came on board C-Suite Network. So this has been something that's really driven my passion for how we see great business leaders aligned around the values of creating success for those we serve, those we take money from, making sure that we are creating opportunity for that to be an advantage as we go through so many changes in the cost structure of operating a business in the environment we're in today and what we're heading into.
Thank you for sharing all of that. Sounds like you work for some storied brands.
Yes, yeah, lots of great brands, great experiences, great people. Great people are what makes business just extraordinarily incredible, and I think so frequently that's not understood, because we hear the stories in the news, the greed, the ugliness, horrendous, this and that. That's what we hear. The fact of the matter is the majority of business owners are sacrificing, they're sharing, they're supporting, they're giving back to their communities in so many ways. And it's a wonderful, incredible thing, and truly an honor to work with great people who are delivering that kind of success and supporting the people that they serve with as well, and sharing in the success that way. There's so many different ways of approaching building businesses and sharing in the success of them and the value they create.
So talking about family, you mentioned the 3 kids. How would you define family? What does family mean to you?
So I have 3 children, but I would describe family much more broadly than that. Family is people that you love and that you trust, and it is there for you. And so I frequently will talk about my C-suite family. I travel a great deal. People say, well, how do you manage all of that travel? And, you have a family, you have, da, 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 da. And I always say, I have family everywhere I go. I can't imagine not getting to see my family. I have people that are absolutely integral to my life everywhere I go. And that's such a gift. And I think we overlook the power of that, the value of that in our lives. And if you don't think about the fact that people who are on your team, so now you can have family members by blood that are not part of your team. So I wouldn't consider family to be anything about necessarily a legal connection or a biological connection. It's people who are on your team. And that is not necessarily, as I said, legal or blood. And it's certainly not full-time employees. Just because you pay somebody does not mean they're on your team. It's about, are they there for you?
Yeah. I mean, it's the family you choose.
Yes. Chosen family. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the most important. And obviously kids. I mean,
Yeah, well,
there's
your kids don't get to choose having you, right? Like, so they're kind of stuck with us. Yeah, I've thought for so many years, there is nothing in this world that you can do to deserve to be that important in a whole human's life, right? To be a parent. And also, there is so little value placed on how important aunts, uncles, chosen aunts, uncles, godparents, grandparents, chosen, any of those roles. Those roles are so important in children's lives. And I think just truly not celebrated enough, not acknowledged enough. Those are the people that can really make a difference, because kids understand those people don't have to show up in their lives, right? Parents, they understand we're stuck with them too, but those people that pour into you that don't have to, that's a really, really important role in a child's life that they understand.
Yeah, again, really sort of chosen family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because they don't have to be there.
Yeah.
And what's health to you? So I look at health as, health can be a fitness, it can be physical health, the mental health, it can be the food you eat. It takes many different forms. But for you, what does health mean?
This is I feel like I'm in constant kind of monitoring. I try always to eat healthy. I try to be active. Then there's certain things that I do at different times, and then I'll forget for a while, and then I'll start that again, and, different things like that. But I would say health overall is definitely all of those things, Leo. And I think if we know anything at all, you can't ignore any of it for any length of time. I mean, you can for short periods, mostly, kind of. Depending on your condition and, the different things you're dealing with in your personal, your whole personal being, whether it's health, physical health, mental health, et cetera, spiritual health, et cetera. So I try to be very cognizant of all of those pieces and the things that I know I need to do to make sure that I am showing up healthy, that I am able to be present, that I'm taking care of myself. And I think that's something that's just so important, because unfortunately, it's very easy to use other people or the missions that we're on with our businesses or our careers as an excuse for not doing the things that we need to do to take care of ourselves. And, like sleep. Oh my goodness, that's gotten better. But remember, the whole thing of like, I get 3 or 4 hours of sleep at night and it's plenty for me, and I'm a, amazing performer. It's like, actually you're hallucinating. And if you read the research, your brain tricks you. So, be really worried about somebody if they're only getting 3 or 4 hours of sleep a night. It is absolutely unsustainable and outrageously unhealthy. And on top of that, their brain cannot process that they're performing worse. Their brain tricks them into thinking they're performing better. And I know there's so much more research, since I did quite a bit of reading in that space, but my goodness, sleep is critically important. So I'm constantly balancing. I mean, there's some nights, you're taking a flight and you're going to be lucky if you get 3 or 4 hours of sleep. Okay, well, can you catch a nap while you're on the plane? What time can you get to bed that night? Can you take a nap before you have to go out to that flight? Like what are the scenarios? Because it's not all going to be the same, but if you're conscientious about it, then you're thinking too, when can I kind of make sure that I'm taking care of myself, or I get through today, but tonight I'll be able to take that rest, and then I'll make sure that I'm sleeping in on the weekend a little bit, and whatever it is. So I try to do that. I've got even when I'm wearing my good watch, I'm always wearing my Apple Watch, because I can monitor how many steps I'm taking, so that this way, if nothing else, I can get in 10,000 steps. I can be listening to calls, I can be making calls, I can be, walking safely. One of the hotels I stay in is a square, and I can walk inside at night, be completely safe, and and do whatever it is I'm doing and get my steps in. So, just different things like that too. I've got a walking board in my office, because when it's snowy, it's not pleasant to put on a coat and boots and, all that kind of stuff. But when I'm on a phone call, I can just jump on the walking board and get some steps in. So I try very much to do that. I also like being out in nature. So, even if I can just get outside into the woods for a few minutes, then, I'm getting that forest bathing, they call it now. But, just making sure you're getting the things you need, whether that's calm, quiet, reading, whatever it is that you enjoy. and that you need to sort of be able to be centered and present and feeding yourself. It's really, really important.
Yeah, I think that all makes sense. And what you say about sleep, I 100% agree. I notice if I've got, for me, I certainly need 6, ideally 7.
Yes.
And if I've had above 7 hours sleep, I notice my performance difference. I'm an athlete and I can see the difference.
Yes.
If I've had 7.5 versus 6.5 hours sleep, I can't sleep more than 8, and my body just is like, okay, wake up and get stuff done. But between 7 and 8 is what my body does need. Doesn't always get it, but that's certainly, I can see the difference.
It's so interesting what your parents teach you. My mom was a veterinarian, and there's certain things, I wasn't allowed to eat sugar. Well, of course, sugar's very bad for you. My mom refused the whole formula thing because, as a veterinarian, she's like, listen, there's a lot of really important things that don't come from, a can. And, so just really interesting, those different things. When it comes to sleep, my mom would always say 8 hours. And the more of those hours before midnight, the better. They count as more in terms of the restorative piece of your health, and I don't know about that as a scientific fact. I bet you she was basing it on some research she read way back when. But I feel the same way. I was a competitive figure skater. The difference between 6, 7, or 8 hours sleep is literally night and day.
And I think the before midnight, I think it depends on your chronotype. And my chronotype is, yes, I need to go to bed early and I wake up very early. So yes, if I go to bed at midnight, I'm still going to wake up at 5 a.m. I'm just going to feel crappy.
Yeah.
My body wakes up early. And what I find interesting is I've done 2 DNA tests over the last year for different purposes, like health type things.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly, they both identify the chronotypes, which I find quite interesting that from a DNA test, they can tell you.
Yes.
Pretty accurately, a lot of that kind of stuff, like when should you be waking up? And it's pretty accurate. It's interesting how that's sort of written in your DNA.
Yeah. Yeah, that is interesting. I haven't done that kind of study. I've done not every, I shouldn't say that. I've done so many of those quadrant, studies, intolerance studies. That's something from a health perspective was a game changer for me. There's a lot of understanding now about gut health and having a healthy gut. If I hadn't had the experience I had of working with a naturopath that helped me understand what I was outrageously intolerant to, I can't even imagine. I got used to being basically in pain and sick pretty much every day. Well, not pretty much every day. Literally, I timed out my day around knowing I would be sick and in pain every day. And not only did she help me with figuring out what it was that was causing it, because I couldn't figure it out. And I don't know about anybody else, but this whole thing of elimination diet, that just doesn't work practically for me. Like, I'm going to add one thing in each week. I love all foods. This is not practical. When you're traveling, you don't know what else is in food. There's that other people are preparing. It's just not practical. So there is blood work you can do that tells you what you're intolerant to. Between that and getting my gut healthy again, it was life-changing. So those kinds of things to help us figure out what is going on in our bodies, and maybe isn't traditional medicine as we know it, but so powerful and so important to know. And again, take that time and get the right kind of help to support you.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm glad that works really well for you. Blood tests for intolerances generally are actually, for most people, pretty inaccurate.
Really?
Skin tests are much more accurate. Blood tests, because the blood doesn't react in the same way. I had a detailed description. So I had a internist, because I was looking for some allergies and intolerances, send me for the detailed blood tests, the ones that test everything under the sun. They cost a fortune. Yeah. And then I took those results and I went to see a couple of other sort of specialists, including a dermatologist. And they were like, these are literally not worth the paper they're written on. I brought them with, and they were like, it does not actually show what you're reacting to, because the blood is not the same as the gut, the skin.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. But in the end, different things work well for different people. And that obviously for you gave you the answers that you needed.
Well, who knows which tests they are. And this was quite a few years ago now. This would have been like a decade ago, and in Canada. So, I don't know the difference of the different tests. And also, I was so extremely intolerant. I mean, just so extremely intolerant, which is not the same thing as being allergic, that what was escaping through the lining of my gut was showing up in the blood. So maybe some of the inaccuracy is because it's not escaping as much as mine was, because it was just brutal. I mean, it was just a horrible experience. And as I said, every day, because every time I ate, I was eating things that contained what I was massively intolerant to, which was only two things. But they happen to be two things that are in just about everything, but I cut that out and immediately had no pain. And my naturopath had never worked with anyone who managed to cut out something like that. But I did for a year and a half. Not one single thing went in my body that had, for me, it was casein and egg. I ate all whole food and I completely controlled everything, nothing processed, because casein and egg, but casein especially, is in every processed food. And I took probiotics and all those kinds of things, and it completely healed my gut. So I introduced it back in over 6 months and literally have no intolerance. I eat everything now
I
and
love
have
that.
for years.
Right.
Yeah.
My daughter can only eat 14 foods, literally. Yeah. No easy option for her.
It's
Makes traveling complicated. She's traveling right now, actually. But yeah,
can introduce you to my naturopath. I loved working with
yeah,
her because her mom and her sister are doctors, and she's the black sheep naturopath. I'm just teasing. She's the naturopath. So she takes into account traditional medicine and a traditional medicine headset, but is an expert in the naturopathic space. So I always really, really, really appreciated working with her.
nice. And that obviously worked well for you. So she's definitely you found what you needed.
Yes, exactly.
What do you like to do for fun?
Oh my goodness. I love all kinds of things. I am a very physical person, so I love playing. I don't care if I'm good at it, whatever it is or not. Like a walk in the woods, my daughter and I will just dance ridiculously as we're walking through our neighborhood to music that we like, and anything else. I don't care what it is. I will try and learn just about, anything I can. I tried snowboarding, and I just laugh and enjoy it. Some people I know feel very intimidated and anxious about things that they're not good at. I just think it's hilarious. I think it's the funnest, thing to try something different. I am not interested in any way in things that will be potentially harmful or not fun to me. And that would be things like jumping out of a perfectly good plane. I have absolutely no interest in that. None. Zero. I'm not scared. What's the point? I don't need to. And same with running a marathon. Not my thing. I totally respect for some people that is a very important goal.
I'm doing one in 3 days.
That's amazing. And I get to live vicariously through you. And that is a great pleasure for me, that I can live vicariously through people I love. But for me, no, because, I was a competitive figure skater, right? So I trained at the Olympic Training Center in Canada for figure skating. You train 50 weeks of the year, 10 to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. And I actually managed to get out of that without having deformed feet. I did shred my MCL, which was career ending, but I can walk, and I do, I still have my hips. I'm pretty damn happy with having all of my body parts, intact, and I don't need to run a marathon. If I can walk my 10,000 steps a day and be active and play and have fun with activity, then I am happy. Another thing I love to do that's a lot of fun is, the VR sets. There's a game called Beat Saber, and you puts on music for you. You get to select what kind of music you want, and you get these hand paddle things, and they become lightsabers, And so the music comes on, and you get to dance and hit the blocks that come at you, whatever way they tell you to hit it. So if the arrow is going this way, you have to hit it up. If the arrow is going this way, there we go. You have to hit down. So I just have a great time dancing that out. And I don't care that I look ridiculous. I could care less. I'm having a blast. And it's great exercise. So yeah, I like activity that is fun and I can play and just enjoy it. You know what, Leo?
enjoying
I
life?
think also my mom probably uh that my mom probably got me going on that. We used to work out together when I was in university. She would come to the gym with me and we would just laugh hysterically the whole entire time. You know, we do the circuit training. Do you remember the circuit training? I don't know if even people do that anymore, but we do the circuit training. So we'd always be looking at each other as you're changing stations. And we just laugh hysterically the whole entire time. So anyway, I get a kick out of it. I just want to have fun with
Perfect
it.
mother-daughter time.
Yeah, exactly. Great quality time.
And how are you at turning off? How are you at, can you stop working?
Turning off is not something that is very easy for me. In fact, I will tell you that last weekend, my husband said to me, Tricia, please, can you just relax now? Because I, I had one of those days where it's like, you know, I fell, which I haven't fallen in so long. You know, I fell and then I also broke a plate all within about 30 minutes. And he said, you know, I think it's time. I thought, hmm, you know, I think you're probably right. You know, I'll just chill out for a little bit here. So shutting down, yeah, it's not something I'm particularly good at. Although I will say my version of shutting down is really just kind of puttering on other things I want to think about. It's funny how that is. I really enjoy just being able to have time that's not scheduled and I'm able to play thoughts to the end and, you know, I wanted to do that and then I'll go and putter with that or I'll go for a walk or I'll, you know, it's that's kind of my way of shutting down. And also another thing that I've started doing recently, the last couple of years, is I watch something or listen to something that is completely innocuous and I'll fall asleep to that. So I can't fall asleep to something that's thought-provoking or in any way miserable. So needless to say, I am not falling asleep to the news. Right now I'm falling asleep to the Andy Griffith Show, which is certainly a blast from the past, but that's been kind of fun. You know, there's a nostalgia of, you know, many years ago and what things were like, and also things that are ridiculous. And I don't know, it's just a new thing that I'm finding kind of shuts me off of other stuff that I'm thinking about.
Funny. And what has been for you in either your personal or your business life? What has been a pivotal moment for you?
I will say that there have been, you know, lots of pivotal moments and just incredible people that I'm so grateful for in my life. Um, because it's all a journey. Anybody who tries to tell you that they've got it all together, or if you pay them enough money, you can kiss their hand and somehow be like them. It's just nonsense. And I don't mean that from a critical perspective. I just mean we're all on a human journey, every single one of us. And then, you know, as soon as you think you've got something down, things change. You know, I've always used the analogy, Leo, of like a Rubik's Cube. You get one side right and you're like, yes, but the only way to get a second side right is to screw up the first side and so on. And as soon as you get all the sides right, guess what? The thing falls apart and you got to shove it back together and figure it back out again. So, I think the pivotal moments, many. I mean, I mentioned the one about, you know, when I was in Washington, D.C. and do you want to go into put your hat in the ring for political polling for the President Bush's reelection campaign? That's one of those moments where, you know, who knows? Because I didn't put my hat in the ring, but it really pushed me to think about what I wanted. And I loved business so much. And politics for me, a very ugly sport. So it made it very clear to me that all I wanted to do was go down the business line of things. And with politics, it was one of those things of, I don't want that to be my whole life, you know, a very clear choice. There's so many other pivotal moments of just, you know, sometimes the littlest choices through to the big ones. I would say, if I were to share something that would actually be useful to anybody, have fun with it. I have spoken to so many people over the years. It's like, what if I do this and it's the wrong thing? It won't be the wrong thing. If you try this and it's not what you want, it'll have you one step closer to the next thing, because now you've learned something about what you don't like or don't want or whatever it might be. And so I think, you know, have fun with those choices in life. And I think, you know, when you think about the last days of your life, you're not going to sit around saying, I wish I, you know, hadn't taken chances. I hadn't, been courageous in that choice or whatever, you live a full life. And nobody, if you make a choice and nobody dies, it's going to be okay. The other kinds of choices where that's on the line, then there's a whole other set of things going on there. And I'm not necessarily talking about that. But anyway, lots of pivotal moments. And I'd say incredible people that have helped me in my journey and still today.
I think you're right, as in there are in many ways no wrong choices. Yes, there may be the odd one, but generally they are all who make us who we are in the present.
Absolutely.
The good and the bad have all helped define how we get here. We would not be the same people if we hadn't taken those wrong decisions.
Yes, it's so true. I don't know. I always say, why waste time regretting when you have whatever time you have now? And I think this is bringing it back to our children. Frequently, I think we make choices for them or we impose upon them expectations because we didn't have the courage to do it ourselves. And you could say, well, the time passed. But, I have a friend that I trained with who was an Olympian who is still playing rugby at 61 years old. So I don't know when it's too late. If you're still breathing, then there's still an opportunity to have impact. And so, yeah, I think this is one of those things where it's important to give yourself the leeway to have fun with those choices and enjoy being courageous in doing those things. And then setting that example for your children. With mine, I just want them to find what they're passionate about. I want them to understand that it's critically important that they give back in whatever way is important to them, that they make choices that support others and their success. These are the things I want them to find for themselves, and whatever that is wonderful. And so I just marvel at being able to see them becoming who they are. It's the most incredible experience. I know, Leo, you just light up every time you talk about your children, but I want them to do what they're really motivated and passionate about, and I can't make that up for them. And I think so often we, as parents, it's like you're supposed to monitor every damn thing they do and make sure it's all set up perfectly for them. And I'm like, who of any of us were successful because our parents made us? Or actually loved what we do because our parents made us? Not a single one of us that I know.
I've always been a big believer in treating my children like adults from a very, very young age. They were allowed to make their own mistakes because, to be honest, that's
oh my goodness, yes.
Why control everything? It's not real.
Well, and if you take away their ability to make mistakes and understand how to deal with them, how to handle that when they're young, and there's no consequence. They're not going to die. They're not, you're able to protect them. If you let them make their own choices and have the consequences of those choices, when they're older, they understand they still have that same, they have that same independence and capability and they're in control of that. They understand those consequences and how to deal with them in so much different of a way than why is this a problem? I couldn't agree with you more, Leo. And also that the whole natural consequences, I always say, for me, it was always very important that my children be respectful of others. So if we are in a restaurant and it's the normal tone of whatever that restaurant is, and they're not acting appropriately, I would share with them that, really we must do this because there are other people trying to enjoy their meals, etc. Now, if it continued, I need you to understand that if we can't act appropriately for this space, we just have to go outside. Now, that's fine. I'll come outside with you and we'll wait until you're ready to go back in. And this is a very simple, easy example to understand. If it's in Canada, let's say freezing or -10, trust me, you are not outside for longer than about 5 seconds before the behavior to go back in is absolutely in place. And your children learn the respect of being around other people. And I think that's also important in terms of how to communicate, how to connect, all those kinds of things to consider others. So those are things that I'm very mindful to. The rest, not my thing. It's theirs.
Well, it's been a fun conversation. Thank you.
Very fun. I actually don't have these kinds of conversations. And by the way, Leo, I never post on my children. So they actually own their own personal brand. There is no posting from me. So to be able to share a little bit of, how I think about these things, at the same time respect them as their own individual selves, I really appreciate.
Thank you. And how can people find you?
They can go to csuitenetwork.com. So C-suite, S-U-I-T-E, network.com. And my email is just Tricia, Tricia, and then it's csuitenetwork.com, C-suite, S-U-I-T-E, network.com. I would love to hear from anyone. And of course, just let me know that you were listening to Leo and I, and we'll make sure that we make you welcome anywhere that you're wanting to come into C-suite.
Well, thank you. And thank you for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, tell your friends, and leave a review.